Welcome to the Vault XL. This commentary is pertaining to the debacle debacle, as some would like to say, Alex Murdaugh. The court clerk, Rebecca Hill, or Becky Hill, has been accused of jury tampering, canoodling with a jury member, making negative commentary to jury members pertaining to alleged guilt of Mr. Murdaugh, but he has been convicted of murdering his wife and son and also weapons charges. He is in a prison, denied some amenities. His attorneys say that this woman, Miss Becky Hill, has obstructed justice and they want a new trial. The jury, at least 3 jury members, have an attorney. You will hear him speak in this court TV commentary. You also hear from the co-author who penned a book alongside Miss Becky Hill. He will speak in this commentary via interview with Mr. Vinnie Politan. And during this commentary from this co-author, you will also hear that Becky Hill has denied the allegations against her, that she was canoodling with a jury member or more, talking to a jury member or more. You're also going to hear allegations of someone who was a juror who was dismissed by Judge Newman for improprieties as a jury member, speaking and talking about the case out in public. Someone went to Facebook to say that she allegedly, this juror, ex-juror, was talking to people about whatever was going on in the court pertaining to Mr. Alex Murdaugh. Now, naturally, she's entitled to defend herself. Did she go out in the public and speak? There's also an allegation about the husband of the juror posting something to Facebook, but allegedly resources went through his phone and there were no posts in his data. So who's telling the truth? My last commentary, I spoke as if this woman is guilty, because what you have to ask yourself is, why are all these people coming out? And it's not to say that this one isn't lying, this one isn't lying. So let's ask everybody, which one of you is telling the truth? Because everything's about perception, you see. Facebook posts, were they true? Did Becky see Facebook posts from someone saying the juror spoke about the case? Is it true the husband put up an anonymous post or posted something from a dummy account, another account? What's the truth? What's the truth about the jury members? What they're saying about this woman, Becky Hill. You see, all I'm hearing right now is he said, she said. So who is telling the truth? Now the jury members have an attorney. He's going to speak. Her co-author is going to speak. And he's speaking on her behalf to say she is denying the allegations. What I like to know is, why isn't she speaking publicly on her own? And is she still the court clerk or not? Vinnie Politan, Court TV.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thanks for joining us tonight. What a night. What a night, right? Oh, my goodness, what is going on tonight? I've covered stories through the years involving allegations of jury tampering, and it's always been the defense. Like the most famous, John Gotti, right? They called him the Teflon Don. Why? Because they always got to the jury. They always got to the jury. So when you talk about someone trying to influence a juror in the middle of a case, I mean, from my perspective, it's always been the other side. Tonight, we're talking about not someone from the prosecutor's office, but as we discussed last hour with a bunch of angry defense attorneys, but rightfully so, if this stuff is true, if is the big word. You've got someone from the government who knows you're not supposed to talk to the jury about the case that they're hearing. The court clerk. And what we're talking about here is Becky Hill. So today, the attorneys for Alex Murdaugh got together on the steps of the courthouse down in the Low Country, South Carolina, and talked about some of their allegations against Becky Hill and why Alex Murdaugh did not get a fair trial and deserves a new one.
Brief intermission. Thank you so much. Good morning, lady. Thank you so much, sweetheart.
Alex Murdaugh maintained and still maintains his innocence in the murder of Maggie and Paul and believes the truth will ultimately prevail. Jim?
When jurors receive private communications outside the confines of a public courtroom, the Sixth Amendment is violated and numerous other constitutional rights are violated. And that's not Jim Griffin on the law. That is the law of the land. And I want to quote from a decision from the South Carolina Court of Appeals, which is behind me, and states this: where there is a private communication of a court official to members of the jury, an occurrence which cannot be tolerated if the sanctity of the jury system is to be maintained, a new trial must be granted unless it clearly appears that the subject matter of the communication was harmless and could not have affected the verdict. What we have filed today is supported by sworn testimony of jurors is that the clerk of court had improper private communications with the jurors, and the subject matter of those communications was the credibility of the defense that the Murdaugh legal defense team put up, and it was the believability of the defendant's own testimony. Now, there's been a lot of talked about whether Alex should have taken the stand. I can assure you, when we considered what factors and what we should and should not do and considered whether he should take the stand, we never considered the likelihood, as reported to us by the jurors, that the clerk of court would go in to the sanctity of the jury room before he testified and tell the jurors, don't be fooled by his testimony, watch out for his body language. And that is what the sworn testimony that we have filed in court today says. And if that is true, which we have every reason to believe that it is, and no reason to believe that it's not, there is no choice but the courts to grant a new trial.
The clerk of court is the person that makes sure the jury gets their food. If they're put up for the night, someplace to stay, their travel accommodations are met. They're not someone that ever should talk to them about the case. I've never had it happen. Again, I've been doing this for a very long time. Never heard of it happening until this case.
And the clerk we're talking about, Becky Hill, has written a book, Behind the Doors of Justice, The Murdaugh Murders, available on Amazon. People are buying it. People are reading it, including the defense. This is part of the basis of them bringing this motion, was based upon this book being released and what's in it. She wrote it with a man named Neil Gordon. Again, it's a big if. If these allegations are true, I think he's going to get a new trial. I really do. But it's a big if. I've been saying that all night. So let's try to get some balance here tonight. Let's get the other side. Joining us tonight, said there was a co-author here. Co-author of Behind the Doors of Justice, The Murdaugh Murders, Neil Gordon is joining us tonight. Neil, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Vinny.
Okay. Before we get into some real details here, your reaction to what happened today. I called it like an earthquake centered down there in the low country, shaking all of us who followed this case. What's your reaction to what you heard from the defense today?
I was shocked. I worked with Becky for 6 months as both a friend and a colleague on the book. And we've had many discussions in writing the book about any kinds of conversations that she would have had with anybody associated. As Harpoolian mentioned, I mean, she has many different tasks. She's got to work with the judge, the media, the public, dealing with the food, dealing with defense attorneys and so forth. And very little with the jury. I mean, there is a chief bailiff that keeps their eyes on the jury at all times, and there's very little contact.
So in preparing this book, were there any conversations that you had with Becky about conversations she had with jurors during the course of the trial, including The fourth person who the defense is saying there were private conversations, allegations that they're on the Moselle property and they walked off together. They may have had a conversation in the jury room bathroom.
Well, Vinny, all that I know and that we put in the book, you mentioned Moselle. There was an order from the judge for there to be silence. There was no conversation to be had. So I asked her and said no conversation was had. We talked about a couple of different things. If you meet Becky, you know that she's very
What is the truth and who's going to tell the truth? Are the jury members lying? How many jury members have brought forward information of improprieties between, basically on behalf of Miss Hill? You hear two instances here when they went to the crime scene and in the jury bathroom. How would somebody know that she was in the bathroom talking to a jury member unless there was another person in the bathroom that was a jury member and overheard the conversation? Did it have several stalls where different people could be in the bathroom at the same time? Or the person who she was giving the 411 to, Becky, they're the ones speaking, the actual jury member? Will the defense get another trial because of these improprieties, alleged improprieties? Like I said before on a few commentaries, I believe he will get it just because the allegations have arose, and I'm assuming they will be thoroughly investigated, which is kind of contradictory to the one juror being dismissed. Seems like to me, if you dismiss a judge, you have proof. And this man doesn't have to tell everything that's been said. So now he's saying in the book, nothing is of a jury member's conversations with Becky directly. He also says he worked with her for 6 months. Well, my understanding is that you all started working 3 weeks. 3 weeks, she came up with the idea to pen a book. So that would be less than 6 months. 6 months is actually September 2023. So what is the truth? When did she actually notify this man to pen a book? How did she find him? You're going to hear about that as well. And is he leaving anything out that wasn't put into the novel? We will see.
If you meet Becky, you know that she's a very spiritual person, and she mentioned that the jury was very prayerful. It was mentioned to her that they prayed often. Becky prayed often with her staff and all. And I asked her directly, I said, did you ever pray with the jury? And she said, oh, no. No legal entity is allowed to have prayer with the jury. So, it was very clear to me that there was a line there.
Okay, now
let me break in there. This is his perception and his opinion of Becky, because you also hear that he's fond of her, they're friends, blah, blah, blah. But we know about people who get in cahoots with people, cohorts, co-conspirators. They don't tell the whole truth until there's some proof, and then they have to backtrack and then admit to whatever they did was allegedly wrong. So they're saying there was a fine line drawn between the jury and she. Well, if there's a fine line between she and the jury, sir, why are we here today discussing this mess? And it's not to say that somebody in this circle isn't lying, but let's just say for the record, they're telling the truth. That we're here for a reason. The news is talking about this story. Vinny Bolotan is interviewing you, and I'm making a YouTube video about the allegations. Who is telling the truth? And why would you want to pen a book? You're also going to learn that in the state of South Carolina, a clerk can give commentary pertaining to a trial. Now, some of you may not agree with that, but as we've heard and you hear in this commentary, lawyers have spoken about trials. There probably have been some judges who have spoken about some trials, but usually there's a wait period or a period of time before people start publicly coming out talking about a trial. The only people that you usually hear speak of a trial and what went on during the trial is the jury. When they decide they want to come talk to the news or get in cahoots with people doing documentaries, so on and so forth, books, whatever, they're usually ones that are the first to speak, not the bailiff, not the judge, not the police officers in the courtroom, but the jury. So in the state of South Carolina, she had the right to speak about what happened in court. But should she be speaking? How about that? Should she have spoken through a book? When will she speak? Why is this attorney going to speak on her behalf? Speaking on her behalf during this commentary, just asking all the pertinent questions. Did this lady tamper with any jury member? And as you hear him say, the bailiff is the one that's supposed to be talking to the jury only, dealing with them, navigating. Then how's it nobody saw her canoodling with the jury member and or giving negative commentary? So where did she give negative commentary to a jury member or more about Mr. Murdaugh's guilt? When and where? In the courthouse, outside the courthouse, at the compound where they went to the crime scene? How many times? Anybody pre-recorded? What is the truth? Thank you for joining me. You're now listening to the Vault XL.
Hey, now, it's unusual. I've been doing here at Court TV for a long time. I don't know if I've ever seen a book written by the clerk of the court after one of these big trials. I've seen them written by the attorneys on both sides, and sometimes they got in a little trouble for that. I've seen plenty of them written by jurors in states that permit it after a certain amount of time. What was the motivation that Becky had to get together with you to write this book? And was this the master plan before the trial started?
Exactly.
Was it plotted that this was going to be the big retirement nest egg?
Yes. Thank you for saying that, Vinny. Brief intermission. That's the question I posed to you guys during my commentary yesterday of this debacle. Did she pre-plan this way before the trial even started? Because naturally, you get wind of a trial before it even starts. You get a due date months in advance before it starts. Usually 6 months. You get an advance notice of when a trial is going to start. So she's had ample enough time to hear the charges, possibly see documents pertaining to the charges, and decide, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to canoodle through this trial the best I can and pen a book. And as we have heard many spectators say, lawyers speaking on news entities such as Court TV, they've never heard of a clerk intervening with the jury nor penning a book after a verdict.
Oh, I don't know about that. I didn't actually meet Becky until 3 weeks after the trial.
Till after?
My wife, 3 weeks after the trial, my wife, like millions of people, were just glued to Court TV and they had trouble working. She decided to go with a colleague, Addie Strozier, to Walterboro to actually watch the trial. She had a chance meeting with Becky the day that the vans were leaving to go to Moselle. In fact, I remember what was said was that there was, Becky was actually making sure that people did not get pictures of the jury. That's how intent she was on that. And so Melissa mentioned to Becky, took a selfie and then reached her out, 3 weeks later, and said, hey, do you mind if I use this in the coffee table book? And Becky.
See, this is where this is a problem right here. And you're going to hear Vinnie Politan or somebody say, this is strange. 3 weeks after the trial, I'm assuming when the trial started, assumingly. After it started or when it ended. I don't know. He just says 3 weeks after the trial. So I'm assuming he means after it was over with, because the verdict came in March. So let's say the end of March is when all this wrangling began between he and Becky. As someone said, what are the odds? Your wife shows up to this courthouse. She's trying to keep people from taking pictures of the jury members, which, as I said, this is a small town. Word's going to get around anyway of the jury members. And we don't know if somebody's lying on that jury member to say she was out here talking, because who's to say somebody didn't get wind or somebody went back and repeated she's a jury member without her consent and without the court's consent. Naturally, you're not supposed to tell who's a jury member if you found out that they're on the jury or talk about it. So how's this lady taking a picture of Melissa with a court clerk? Does that look professional? I don't know. So I'm assuming this all took place afterwards, because if it took place during, that would really look bad. You're the court clerk, and during trial, you're taking pictures with random people. Something still appears off. Just saying. So what? Melissa came back to you, and you just so happen to be an author, you and some other people, and then a book came into motion. This is why I always tell you to pay attention to the details.
Becky said, this has been the trial of the century, and I'm thinking about it. I just don't know how to go about it. And so they brought me in as a colleague. I mean, my background has been in journalism for 30 years. I instantly liked her. And as you held up the book, Behind the Doors of Justice, you're right. No clerk of court has ever really written a book to...
Exactly. No court clerk has ever written a book that we've heard of or I've heard of. Once again, what are the odds? One lady is talking to her, Becky, after the trial, I'm assuming. And then he just so happens to be what? An author or publisher. That's what? Married to this Melissa person or in cahoots with her. See, this is why I said something is off. Because you got to explain this logically. Small town USA. A woman bumps into the court clerk, takes a selfie with her, starts talking to her, and then brings her in with this guy here who's speaking, who authored the book, which means he wrote it, which leads us to believe the obvious. He's a writer. We also hear that he and his partners went out of pocket on their own to push this book out to the public. There's something off here. Who's to say that woman didn't deliberately find the clerk to canoodle and fawn over her? She's a wagging mouth. She starts talking, telling stuff. Oh, I don't know how to go about doing it. I just find it strange. Becky is talking to somebody allegedly randomly about how to pen a book or how to go about it. And this lady just so happens to be what? Dating or married to a man who's an author. I want you to think about that for just a second. Could this be a case that they saw her out, sent the lady over there to South Carolina, one thing begat another. She fell for it, went into it, or she was already planning to write a book. Who's telling the truth? So you don't even know if he's telling you the truth. And this is not to be nasty, because I was a bit hard on Becky, but jury members, why would they be lying about you talking to them? Why is it just now coming out now, the month of September? See, there's too many oddities and there's too many people in the puzzle, which will lead you to wonder who is actually telling the truth. Because I can't say I trust him. I can't trust Becky. I can't trust these anonymous jurors. Will they come forward? They now have an attorney. You'll hear him speak. It's too many irons in the fire, which will lead us to believe there may be some truth to it. It's just a matter of getting down to who is exactly telling the truth. What is the motivation for coming forward to give these allegations 6 months later, 5 months later? That's what you have to ask yourself.
No clerk of court has ever really written a book to just explain minute by minute how intense a trial situation is and how reverent you have to be to the truth and to law. And I got to tell you, you asked my reaction. I was pretty upset at what Harpoolian said was the motivation that Becky had. Last time I checked, Simon & Schuster did not send us a check for $200,000, but Gordon's and the Hills put up $30,000 of our own money because we felt this was an interesting story to tell. So right away, Vinny, for that to be motivation for her to get a book deal is completely false right there.
So
before I let Vinny weigh in, first of all, I'm going to say this again. Sir, we don't know you from a can of paint, nor do we know Becky Hill or the jury members who have spoken. For you to sit here and say you all had to put up the money, $30,000, no big company gave an advance to she and you, whomever. What's your point? She's going to be well known now because of this debacle. Other people will be coming to her, and she'll probably ask for monies to speak. Because I doubt that she'll be the clerk after this if she resigned, or I don't know. But to say, oh, it ain't about the money. We had to put up the money to write the book, to get the book published, blah, blah, blah. The point is, she isn't just going to come to you, talk to you about what happened in the court without expecting some type of monetary gain. That would defeat the purpose of her reaching out or allegedly talking to your wife or whomever. Because I don't know who's who. I'm one of the type of people, I need a receipt before I start claiming who's who. It is for monetary gain, sir. Stop the BS now. Stop acting like this is no big deal. You're trying to downplay this woman coming out, making a book, you getting cahoots with her, whether you sought her out or she sought you out. Because as I tell you all, when you have these type of stories, you don't know what's the truth. And one reason why this is going to be a negative story is for the obvious reason. A man killed his wife and son. So you have to remember something about stories like this. They have tentacles. Although those people are dead, the suspect is alive and living in a prison. People latch on to negativity. And that's exactly what is happening here. A very disturbing story has dead people, a suspect, now incarcerated, and other people now latching on to the negative story, which is about 2 dead people. Stay woke now. It's called one thing begets another. This is what happens in life. Negativity draws negativity. So don't you find it interesting that we have a negative story of a man murdering his family, and then all of a sudden now we got a clerk who should have been just sitting down somewhere being still, co-authoring a book with someone, and he's downplaying her role and his role, and it ain't about the money. It's always about the money because it defeats the purpose of her writing a book, whether she sought you out or you sought her out. Who sought whom out? Because you're making it seem like it was just a chance. She bumped into your wife, blah, 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 or your wife bumped into her. See, this is all BS. And it's disrespectful to the dead. And we know that there are going to be true crime stories, documentaries about this. But now Miss Becky has decided to join into a story that, one, doesn't concern her. The story isn't about Becky Hill. It was about Alex Murdaugh murdering his family. Now we have somebody latching on to the story, which is what I call a clout chaser. And then the story will be now about Becky Hill. Say, whoa.
Is completely false right there.
So what you just explained to me is that you're in the negative on this.
We self-published.
You self-published.
We self-published.
So that means you didn't get the big advance, none of that.
No.
Okay.
We advanced a check for $30,000. You know, you got attorney fees, you got to get set up on Amazon, you got to print so many copies, liability insurance, editors, you name it. But
in the end, the $30,000 that he and his partners came up with, you're going to get that back for the obvious reason. It is now a TV story, news story, sir. People are going to be coming from every angle entity to talk to you and Miss Hill. You're going to get your $30,000 back 10 times fold. Come on, stop the bullshit. And you knew this. What's 30,000 compared to high 6 figures and or $1 million plus? Because now it's a breaking story. And you all will probably do whatever you need to do to recoup the 30,000 plus. So you'll be having entities come to you, and you'll possibly be offered money from sources such as what? TMZ, the Sun, Daily Mail. Those sources pay, as far as I know, the Daily Mail and the Sun. They tell you that at the bottom of their articles. If you have an interesting story, to call us, email us, and we will pay. So you can get your money back, the 30,000. Exactly. Money, money, money. And I think this is sad. He wants to brag about his friendship with her, what type of person she is. She's honest, blah, blah, blah. But you're also downplaying the fact that this is about money, because in the end, who's going to front somebody a book for $30,000? Self-publish it with their own money, and this woman is not going to get anything out of it. She's not going to sit here with hours and hours with you to talk about what happened in the court without expecting some compensation. She would be a fool to have done this for free. You all drew up some legal papers, legal documents. We know you did. And you are promising her something from this, be it now or later. Wow. I tell you, it takes all kinds.
You name it. But we felt it was a story that should be told. I mean, in my lifetime, I'm 59 years old. I don't know that there will ever be another trial like this. And it was my honor and pleasure to work with somebody with such integrity and character as someone like Becky Hill. Did you interact with her? I know that you were there.
I was there. I did not. Some of our staff had the opportunity to do that. And you said another trial like this in our lifetime. Well, we're hoping there's not going to be another one like this, because that's what the defense wants, is an exact repeat of the trial. Obviously, they want a different ending to the whole thing. Have you spoken to Becky today?
You see how the co-author speaks of Becky. He acts as if he knows this woman so well. He acts like he had a 10, 20-year relationship with her as a friend. You just met her, allegedly, sir. And we have learned about meeting people, how they may appear when we first meet them, and then somewhere down the road, they change or we change, number one. Number two, many people are friendless because people who they thought were friends, family members, they fell out for whatever reason, and each could say the same about the other person. He changed, she changed. We had a disagreement, or I don't know what happened, but no, we don't speak, we don't talk. So the fact that you are bragging about somebody that you just met 5 to 6 months ago is very interesting to me. And you're speaking of her having integrity and this and that. Yes, they had an agenda, of course. Because now I'm starting to wonder if he sent his wife over there on purpose to bump into Miss Becky, or the woman took it upon herself to go peep and be nosy to South Carolina to see what was going on. So now we have to ask that question. Where is this author living? He and the wife. Where are they from, and where do they reside, and how far are they from where this trial took place? That's what I'd like to know. Always remember, when their mouths are moving, people have been known to lie. So as I said, you now have another entity into the story, which is the author who's speaking here. You don't know what he's telling is the truth. Naturally, he's going to brag and boast her because he wrote the book with her. He's got to get his money back. He's got to get his money back. Now, down the road, if there's improprieties done on her part, somebody can bring forward a receipt or receipts. He might change his mind about old Becky Hill. Because if there's any lying in anything that she's told him, and if he finds out she was messing with the jury, he may not want to have anything else to do with her. But then, too, he might be the type to ride the ride alongside his new friend because she is such a great person with integrity.
Becky, today, after all of this has become public.
Very briefly, as you might imagine, she's had calls off the hook from media outlets. And as much as she'd like to make a statement, these allegations are so deep that she has hired counsel and they're going over them. But I am told they are going to put out a statement in the near future. And one thing I know about Becky Hill, she will answer each and every one of these allegations truthfully.
Once again, boasting about his newfound friend. She now has an attorney, denies the allegations. So what we have to ask ourselves, did you need an attorney? Could you not just speak publicly about what happened? Hey, I found an author. I waited till the trial was over, and I wanted to write a book. As I also said, is she still the clerk at this place? I don't think she would want to be the clerk after this. But see, who's to say this wasn't her grand scheme to bow out as being a clerk? See, you don't know because you don't know her. That's why I said all these things that this man is saying about her is a bunch of BS. A bunch of BS. Because he doesn't really know her. And as I said in my live yesterday, will we find out that there are other improprieties done with this lady and other court procedures, trials, where she's meddled, talked to people, made commentary behind closed doors, with jury members, with other staff members, also with outsiders, because these are the allegations she brought forward to the judge to get the jury dismissed. The lady was out gossiping about the trial. Somebody heard about it and posted it to Facebook. Oh, yeah, that lady, blah, 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 juror number 10 is saying these things. It gets back to Miss Becky, and then Becky decides to go tell it to the judge. And it's so interesting. Her name, Becky. Or shall we say Karen? Are we talking about another messy Karen? Perhaps.
each and every one of these allegations truthfully. She's one of the most genuine people I know, and it made me sick seeing this played out on national TV, and I just felt like I needed to speak out.
Sorry about that, everybody. This man, I can be a little rough around the edges when it comes to these storylines, because usually if I get a feeling that something isn't right, that's when I give my opinion, and it can be harsh at times. So today I said I'm going to try to be a little nicer since we have so many entities in the story, but there's still something off because this is now a he said, she said story. He said, and she said, and she said. Now we have an author of a book. They wrote it with her. He's now a he said. And he's bragging about his new friend, Becky. It's up the Brady Bunch. Marsha. You don't even know her. You're sitting here bragging about what she did and didn't do. Now she has a lawyer. See, more tentacles. Now she's gotten a lawyer because of the allegations. Well, Becky, you should have known people were going to talk once you decided to pen the book. Because as you've heard from people such as Mr. Vinnie Politan and this author here, you never hear of a clerk of the court writing a book. This is the first time I've ever heard of it. So what is the problem? So we got jury members got a lawyer now. The author of the book has a lawyer, Miss Hill. Gee, I'm wondering if this guy going to go get a lawyer. Are you all following this story? There's something wrong here. Why would a clerk want to write a book? Why does she now have a lawyer? Oh, because people say she's saying this, and this. So what is she going to do now? Deny that she ever went to the judge about the juror? This is why I said you have to pay attention to the information. Is Becky now going to say, oh, I never said nothing to the judge. He took it upon himself to remove her. Then people are going to be waiting for the judge to respond. Tentacles. Don't you see how far out this is going now? It's getting deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole. Now, two sets of lawyers. The jury members have a lawyer. Becky has a lawyer. The defense team for Mr. Murdaugh want a new trial. Who else is going to get a lawyer? Oops, I know. The people who she accused of. She accused of the allegations. That's the juror and her husband. Now they'll go get a lawyer. And they have every right to sue for defamation if we find out that these are lies against the juror and her husband, that they never posted anything and she never went out to the public talking about the trial. So how long into the trial was it before Judge Newman dismissed her? I'm curious.
If this is true, because
Thank you.
Because that's a big part of it, right? And the fact, she's been doing this for years, right? So, she understands the rules and the role and everything else. So that's why I was so shocked by these allegations. Now, there were some strange things that happened during the course of this trial, including this whole Facebook controversy with juror, I think it was 758, who ended up getting kicked off. Was there any of that sort of drama? Because I have not read the book yet. I'll be honest with you. Okay, 100% I've not read this book yet. Now everyone has to read it, right? To figure out what the defense.
Vinny, I'm gonna send you an autographed copy.
Oh, thank you. But is there anything in here about the juror who got bounced from the trial because of whatever was going on with the Facebook posts, with the ex-husband, etc.?
Yes, there is, and what it all led to, and this I think is really the most important part of it in our book, is it led to Judge Newman, very unusual, calling the jury back in chambers and interviewing her, calling the juror rather, and interviewing her about the situation. And what he said, and he addressed this to the public and to the gallery, he said he felt that she was discussing the merits of the case, whatever way you wanted to go with it, with the outside public. And so the judge did decide to disqualify her and send her home.
And does Becky, was she discussing with Becky? Is that who she was speaking with?
Oh, no. Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. Apparently, and again, I'm not crystal clear on this, but
this is not sworn testimony tonight, Neil. You're not under oath, so just your best recollection.
Thank you.
We'll work tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, Vinny, there were apparently some Facebook posts that were out there allegedly by somebody who knew her and talked about her talking about the case in the community. That was enough for the judge to call the person in. And then after interviewing that juror, he decided that she should not be on the jury anymore.
So the judge called in the juror from the gossip that Miss Becky heard or saw on Facebook. So I'm going to ask this question one more time during this live stream. Thank you all so much for joining me. Were the allegations true? Did the juror go out into the public or talk in privacy and they went back and repeated? Because once again, this is a small town. She could have told one person something and then they went and told what she said. But it still goes back to her if indeed she repeated something pertaining to the trial and she had no business. So then Becky gets wind of this information. Stay abreast now. Becky gets wind of these allegations of Facebook posts of somebody else talking about what juror number such and such did. So then Becky double backs to the judge. The judge then calls in the juror. I was hoping he called in the the he said, she said person if they could be found. But anyway, what did the juror say to the judge in response to the allegation? That's what I'd like to know. Thank you again, Tiny. What was her response to the judge about the allegations and being let go? Obviously, they were in the courtroom because he was sitting behind the bench talking to her because I heard something about her getting some eggs or something. And he telling her, did she want to get her eggs, blah, blah, blah. It seemed more jokingly than it being serious, letting her go over her gossiping about the trial. Now, Tiny says in the chat, this was the first day of deliberations that she went and started talking. But that's the point. If you're a jury member, you're not supposed to say anything about anything. But let's just say no juror ever said anything to anybody. Some will still say that Miss Becky was too involved with the jury. So you see, you still got several allegations in this storyline. You have, he said, she said in the street that Becky took back to the judge. That's number one. The judge dismisses the juror on the gossip, he said, she said, and believes it. Allegations the husband put up posts. Allegedly, that's been found to be untrue. But then you have Becky, which is a separate entity from the gossip, her being too involved with the jury, which many entities have said they've never heard of that. It's supposed to be the bailiff only guiding the jury to and fro, setting up lunch, dinner, things like that, making sure they're comfortable, not the court clerk. But this is the Deep South, 9 times out of 10, a small area. They're probably doing things they don't have no business doing that's not above board. And I'll say that for the courthouse, the jails, it's all the same. Everything is ran differently in different jurisdictions. And people are probably doing things in the court, the jail, that they're not supposed to be doing. And I think that's what's happening here with Becky. She was doing too much that she wasn't supposed to be doing as a clerk. But remember, somebody allowed her to do certain things that she possibly wasn't supposed to be doing. And that's the judge. Or the state's attorney's office, which is whoever's the higher pillar there. I do not know how it works. But I think she immersed herself because she's a clout chaser, immature, lonely, wants attention, wants to be seen, wants to be validated. That's the reason why she found somebody to write the book or they saw her out. However it goes. The point I'm trying to make is one thing begets another. And this is a negative story about dead people. So you can expect to get a bunch of BS because negativity breeds negativity. And the fact that this author is acting like he's so baffled at the allegations, what people are saying about her, they're not true. She never talked to me about anything the jurors said. Well, the jurors are saying different. So once again, how many jury members are coming forward with allegations against Miss Becky Hill?
Not be on the jury anymore. So the end result is the judge made the decision. And we didn't really cover much of, because Becky really didn't have any involvement in it that we discussed.
So as we sit here tonight,
that comment makes no sense either. She doesn't have any information on what the judge did, but she's the reason the judge let the juror go. The jury wasn't looking at Facebook. If he did, he wasn't going to tell the court that he was, because everyone's instructed not to look at social media if they have any involvement in the trial. So that leaves Becky Hill, sir. So you sit here acting like, oh, she didn't have nothing to do with the judge's decision, or she ain't got nothing to do with, she's got a lot to do with it. She's the reason we're here. Maybe you forgot why you were on court TV being interviewed by Vinnie Politan. Because I know why I'm here making a video about all you crazy ass people. I'm here because somebody went and told somebody something, and that somebody got rid of somebody. And then some other somebodies came forward with allegations against Becky Hill, and then they went and got a lawyer, so on and so forth. Did I clear that up for you, sir? Because maybe you forgot why you're on a TV show talking about Becky Hill and how you came to meet her, how your wife came to meet her, how you're distraught over the allegations against her. She's a really great person and she has a lot of integrity and blah, 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 blah. Well, I want a receipt that somebody was putting up posts about the trial being juror number 758 or whatever that number is. Did the juror say something to someone or others about the damn trial? If she did, bring a receipt. Because this is a small town, small area. And let me tell you, how long do you all think it was going to take for somebody and somebodies to find out who the fucking jury members are? Anybody could have seen them coming in and out of the courtroom and used deduction. And then anybody could have went and started posting shit on Facebook and say, oh yeah, she said this, he said this, and I saw him at the Piggly Wiggly and he said this. How do we even know it's true? And I'm sure these people would be tempted to say something about the trial to somebody else. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that they would say it to another jury member when we know they're not supposed to talk amongst the jury either. But we're all human. We make mistakes. Did the jury ever discuss the storyline between themselves? Number one. Did they ever go outside and discuss it with other people? Are we now going to have other people coming forward saying some other jury members were talking and gossiping about the trial? Do y'all see where this is going? This is bad. And now this man may get another trial. All because of this busybody ass Becky, and possibly if this woman did go out and say something. I'm not saying she didn't. All I'm saying is somebody got the ball crunk and Becky was the messenger. How about that? But as I said before, despite if it's true that somebody was gossiping about the trial, a juror, that still has nothing to do with Becky's involvement with the jury and talking to jury members. That's still two separate situations. This is bad. This is really bad.
So as we sit here tonight and you think about doing this project with Becky, you guys funded it yourselves. Are there any regrets? Anything like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done this, or, oh, we put stuff in here that could be problematic and could perhaps compromise the trial or compromise Becky?
Well, that's a fair question, Vinny. And obviously when we sat down, we decided that we wanted to share as much as we could with, and I should tell you, this was run through a media attorney. This was run through the Ethics Commission in the state of South Carolina about even a clerk of court being allowed to write a book, an elected official. And they said as long as, sealed documents aren't shared, and as long as confidential information is not shared, it's okay. And so we went on that premise before we even started.
Let me go back and let him repeat that again.
That she should not be on the jury anymore. So the end result is the judge made the decision, and we didn't really cover much of, because Becky really didn't have any involvement in it that we discussed.
Yeah, but she was the messenger.
So as we sit here tonight and you think about doing this project with Becky, you guys funded it yourselves. Are there any regrets? Anything like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done this?
Very good question.
We put stuff in here that could be problematic and could perhaps compromise the trial or compromise Becky.
Well, that's a fair question, Vinny. And obviously when we sat down, we decided that we wanted to share as much as we could with, and I should tell you, this was run through a media attorney. This was run through the Ethics Commission in the state of South Carolina.
Before we get into the ethics and all of that, Vinny just said affect the trial. My understanding, this trial ended in March, because I just Googled it yesterday, around the 2nd of March or somewhere in there. So if the trial was over in March, your comment about asking him, does he have any regrets? I don't understand that. Because the trial was over, allegedly, remember? When she decided to seek these people out or seek him out to help with the book or however it went, they saw her out. The trial was already over. So what was it that she was going to say that was going to affect a trial? The trial was already over. That's why I said, when did she actually get contacted by this man and his wife or whomever? See, I need a receipt to that. Because see, that's the one thing you may not even get a receipt to, is when she actually decided to pen a book, number one. When did she meet this lady? When did she reach out to this lady's husband, however this goes? How did they all meet up? What month was it? What date was it? Was it exactly after the trial, 3 weeks after the trial, which would put us at mid-March? Why did Becky feel the need to write the book? How about that? Is she still a clerk? Did she resign after meeting with them? Or did she resign after the trial was over? What's the timeline? Now you hear that they ran this information through the ethics, South Carolina ethics, this, that, and the other. Did you go talk to someone directly, sir? Or did you all just Google the information about clerks having pen books? I'd like to know that too.
Ethics Commission in the state of South Carolina about even a clerk of court being allowed to write a book, an elected official. And they said as long as, sealed documents
Let's hear that again.
there, the media is all out in front, people have an opportunity to come in and see this almost an opportunity, it's okay. And so we went on that premise before we even started. And we carefully vetted this through media attorneys and editors, and we feel very good about it because it's not so much about.
You guys funded it yourselves. Are there any regrets? Anything like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done this, or oh, we put stuff in here that could be problematic and could perhaps compromise the trial or compromise Becky?
Well, that's a fair question, Vinny. And obviously when we sat down, we decided that we wanted to share as much as we could with, and I should tell you, this was run through a media attorney. This was run through the Ethics Commission in the state of South Carolina about even a clerk of court being allowed to write a book, an elected official. And they said as long as, sealed documents aren't shared, and as long as confidential information is not shared, it's okay. And so we went on that premise before we even started. And we carefully vetted this through media attorneys and editors, and We feel very good about it because it's not so much about the trial. You were there, you saw, and you can see the gallery, small town courthouse. It's like Mayberry, town square. The media is all out in front. People have an opportunity to come in and see this, almost an opportunity of a lifetime. People came from New York and other parts of the country just to see this. And it was wonderful to be able to share how when people work together for the common good to do the right thing, this can come off as, I think, a well thought of trial and how it was run. And that was really her job, was to run the courtroom. That's she's like the operations manager of the courtroom. And from what I could tell, it seemed to me she did a very good job, and I'm proud to call her a friend, and I'm proud to co-author the book with her, and I'd write another one with her.
Well, I've got the title for the next one, Behind the Doors of Justice, and you follow how all of this sort of works its way through the whole system. Unbelievable. Neil Gordon, appreciate you coming on tonight. I always want both sides of every story, especially when one side is really loud with theirs. So I hope you'll come back as things develop.
I'd be honored to. And Vinny, thank you for being balanced on this and an opportunity to come on and share. And I hope you have a great rest of the program.
All right. Thanks so much. Neil Gordon joining us tonight. All right. Don't go anywhere. Up next.
All right. Brief intermission. So he's thanking him for being balanced. Well, that doesn't mean that he didn't have an opinion to himself. What the hell is going on with you all? You and this Becky person. As you hear him say, they ran everything through the ethics committee, media attorneys before, I guess, writing and or publishing the book. The state of California. The state of South Carolina says the clerk can pen a book. But some are going to think that this was an elaborate plan on behalf of Ms. Hill because it's only a few months out, several months out now. We're going into month 6 that this has happened, of penning a book. So what you have to ask yourself is the obvious question. When did she come up with the idea to write the book? When did she give notice if she is no longer a clerk? We didn't hear that she was fired. So we have to assume that she is either still a clerk or she resigned as a clerk. And if she resigned, one would say she resigned because she knew it was going to wreak havoc. People are going to be judgmental and wondering why would you feel the need? You're not a jury member. You're not somebody who's actually in the trial having to deliberate and hear the information, the people that are more important. So let's ask that question. Ms. Hill, why did you feel the need to pen the book as a clerk? You're just a clerk. You're supposed to be navigating the courtroom allegedly, supposed to be the bailiff navigating the jury. Why did you feel the need to write a book? And people are going to question, when did you come up with the idea to pen a book? Because you already had information that the trial was going to take place at a certain time. You would get that information before anybody in the public would find out. Because we know that you all talk and whisper even in courthouses. This is baffling to me. All of this information is very baffling. Clout chasing at best.
To find out how to watch.
The defendant, Richard Alexander Murdoch, wishes to take the stand.
I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime.
All right, he says he didn't do it, says he wants a new trial. Now he may have a reason to get a new trial, depending on how this whole thing goes. Explosive allegations from his team today, saying that the clerk of the court, Becky Hill, who wrote this book, we just spoke to her co-author, was talking to the jury and influencing the jury during the course of the case. Take a look. This is an affidavit from juror 630. Toward the end of the trial, Rebecca Hill told the jury not to be fooled by the evidence presented by Mr. Murdoch's attorneys, which I understood to mean that Mr. Murdoch would lie when he testified. She also instructed us to, quote, watch him closely immediately before he testified, including to look at his actions and look at his movements, which I understood to mean that he was guilty. It's as if we had Janine Driver instructing the jury on body language. What is this? Now, she's denying it. Her co-author also told us that none of this has happened. It was, what does this mean? So it's a big if, but if could be a big problem. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight in Seattle, Washington, trial attorney, author of Justice in the Age of Judgment, fellow at the American College of Trial Lawyers, Ann Bremner. Also with us tonight in West Palm Beach, Florida, former police lieutenant, great trial attorney, Rick King. And in Columbia, South Carolina, criminal defense attorney, Lori Murray, lawyer Lori on TikTok. Millions and millions and millions of views. You got to check it out. All right. Let's Lori Murray, let me start with you first, though. I just spoke with Neil Gordon, the co-author. Seems like they vetted all of this to get ready for the book. There was nothing about these conversations. When they went to the Moselle property, when they allegedly had these conversations, there was all silence. What are your thoughts tonight about whether or not these allegations made by the defense could be true? 0 to 10, 10 being it's the truth, 0 being come on.
9.5. I believe them. They're sworn affidavits. I'm sorry, this you're talking about pitting two people against each other. You're asking her whether she did her due diligence, but are they going to say to her, hey, you influenced us? It's not their job. When they're asked about what happened, what the interaction was with Becky, then they told defense attorneys what that interaction was. They don't, Becky's not going to go, did you feel like I was influencing you? Because I kind of was. At this point, it's like Becky with the bad book.
Ann Bremner, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen a person from the court system, here's the court clerk, allegedly, again, it's allegedly.
Right.
If criminal defendants get the presumption of innocence, clerks of the court clearly get them when they're not even charged with anything, okay? Okay, so, right. So, but I've never seen an instance like this. Does this stuff happen? I just don't know about it. I'm naive.
No, this is stunning. But if a juror swears that this happened, there could be a new trial, like you said. If they said that happened, the judge is presumed prejudicial if there's extrinsic evidence like this. Something's injected in the jury room, is presumed to be prejudicial, and then the judge has to conduct a hearing to decide whether or not that's harmless. And last I looked at that was harmless beyond a reasonable doubt. I've had 2 cases like this. One of the cases, not like this, it wasn't the clerk, but extrinsic evidence and not jury tampering, but close, where I benefited, got a new trial, and once where I, as a prosecutor, had to do a whole do-over in a serial rapist case. So it happens, especially with social media. But I can't believe the clerk would do that. I just can't.
Yeah,
I can't.
So Rick King.
So the guest says she can't believe the court would do this. You can't believe the court would do what, ma'am? You can't believe this lady who works for the court as a clerk would be talking to jury members. So what we have to ask ourselves, why are these people coming forward with this information? Are they telling the truth? When did she allegedly say, don't pay any mind to what he's saying, watch his demeanor? When did she say this to the jury? That means she had to be in a private space, because she would know better to say it in court, because they were filming the procedure. Everything would be, on a schedule as far as once the cameras were rolling. Damn well she wouldn't say it in front of the cameras and the judge. So she had to have said it to these people in privacy. So when and where did she allegedly tell these people, don't mind what he's saying, don't believe what he's saying, watch his demeanor? Because allegedly he testified near the end of the trial. So where did she have these conversations with the jury members? In a deliberating room, in the corridor, lunch break room? Where? This is all too damn much for me. And he may get a new trial, Mr. Alex.
I can't.
So Rick King, I believe an affidavit might be enough to get a hearing, but I want someone in the courtroom facing cross-examination, direct examination, under oath, in view of the public, saying this stuff for me to believe that. But if it's true, Rick, I think I'm with any lawyer, right? If this is true, there's no way he should not get a new trial, because we can't have people telling, I don't care who they are, it doesn't matter who they are, talking about the case with a jury.
Right, I totally agree with you. And here's the thing. So in Florida, the clerk doesn't have that kind of jury contact. It's the deputy, it's the bailiff in the courtroom who speaks to the jury and takes them out, brings them to lunch, brings them back.
Well, that was the case here too, though. But what Neil Gordon just told me in the interview was there was a bailiff who was in charge of the jury, but I guess the court clerk also had a say in coordinating some of this stuff. I don't know. It's the first trial I covered.
So you hear this African-American gentleman speaking, saying it's what the clerk's job is and what the bailiff's job is. But this goes back to what I said earlier. That doesn't have anything to do with how a courtroom is ran by the judge. You can have a protocol of who does what in the court building, number one. But how they are delegated is a whole different situation. And I just said, this is a small town USA. Who's to say the judge, he allowed her to navigate in the courtroom as if she was the head knocker? The bailiff was supposed to be in charge of these people, watching and monitoring them. But maybe the judge allowed this lady, Miss Hill, to navigate in a position that she wasn't supposed to have. Is that true? Judge Newman, I'm talking to you now. Did you give her privy to do things she had no business doing, such as being alone with the jury members? Who else saw her talking to these people? Any other eyewitnesses besides jury members that overheard her saying negative things about Alex Murdaugh to the jury? Because you have to ask yourself, where did these conversations take place? Why didn't anyone speak up before a verdict was reached? Because they would have gave a mistrial as soon as this hit the fan. And that's possibly why the jury waited before speaking. See, this is why I always tell you to listen to the information. This is how you get to the bottom of the story, the truth. The jury didn't say anything about this woman saying anything to them because they didn't want to have a mistrial. Start the process all over. But now it's looking like with what you all have brought forward, you jury members, he's possibly going to get another trial just on legalities alone of wrongdoing on part of the clerk. I don't think the verdict will be different in another trial. Same information will be relayed 9 times out of 10, but it's taxpayers' money. And small jurisdictions don't need to be retrying cases off of some BS because of a clerk. But it is what it is. You can't take it back now. Can't go back in time. And as you heard, this Vinnie Politan asking this man, this author, do you have any regrets, Mr. Gordon? He's like, no, I don't. Of course not, because he's going to get some money from this. You see, she's going to get some money from this. There will be other agencies offering her funds to speak and talk, and 9 times out of 10, she will speak. I don't think she's just going to always give interviews that are free. You also heard he said she's going to come forward with her attorneys to speak. I'm assuming they will be speaking on her behalf. Well, you might want to choose a date kind of fast to speak because people are now wanting to hear from you. We don't want to hear from Mr. Gordon because we don't know to believe his version either of how he met you and all this, what you said to him in privacy, confidence, versus what's in the book. But then I'm sure if you told him something in privacy and then said, no, don't put that in the book, he probably would say, but we need that. So now I'm going to ask that question. What was the purpose of the book then? If you didn't discuss anything with Gordon about the jury or you talking to the jury, we got allegations against you now from jury members, ma'am. But yet Mr. Gordon says you didn't discuss anything about your conversations with the jury because you never did. Then where are these allegations coming from then? And still, we're going to ask the main question. Why did you feel the need to publish a damn book? I don't understand it myself.
Some of this stuff, I don't know. It's the first trial I covered in the Low Country where I went there and saw it in action.
So to me, that in and of itself is somewhat like skeptical, and it gives the kind of just the it looks the impropriety. It just looks improper.
Yes.
But here's what I would say also, and this is where you can color me skeptical. What are the chances of the journalist's wife getting a selfie with her, and then months later there happens to be, I just happen to have her phone number to call her, and this book thing gets started? I'm skeptical.
Thank you.
Wait a minute. Let's talk
Shut
about
your
the
mouth.
book deal here. If this is the big prize, right? This is why we're doing all of this. This is why we are potentially committing crimes and tampering with the jury, is to produce this. There was no advance. Lori Murray, there was no advance. It cost the authors $30,000 to get this out to the public.
For now.
They're in the negative right now, Lori Murray. Unless all your TikTok followers are going to buy a copy, they're not going to make money from this.
You have a copy.
I have told all of them not to buy I have told them all, do not buy this book because it
What
is
are you
the
doing that
biggest piece.
for? Let them at least get their money back. They spent $30,000 to make this.
I read that thing and I want my money back. It was the biggest piece of self-aggrandizing collection of papers that I have ever seen.
Stop it.
Becky was the center of the case. Becky got to read the verdict. Becky did this. Becky did that. Becky. And I want to say that in South Carolina, to your point, sir, from Florida, the clerk of court is over our bailiffs. Our bailiffs are the ones that are supposed to have the contact with the jury, not the clerk of court. So if she had one bit of contact with them, it's improper. The bailiffs have the contact with the jury, not the clerk of court.
Okay. And I don't know what the truth is here. I don't know. I need to see testimony. I heard all about affidavits. Ann Bremner, in your career, are affidavits always accurate?
No. In fact, in these juror matters, they're not accurate. In fact, one of my cases, they were totally inaccurate. And it went up on appeal and then all over the place. People were like, how did you say that? You got him to say that? I didn't mean that. When they testify, well, I didn't mean to say that. That lawyer asked me to do, X, Y, and Z. So they're just trying to be helpful. No, they're not always accurate.
Okay, so we will see. And like I said, I agree with everyone. I think that if this is true, but we got to get to that part of it. And this weekend, I'm glad I bought it because I needed it tonight. I just bought a big thing of Himalayan pink salt, sea salt, or whatever it is from the Himalayas.
Oh my God.
I bought it this weekend. I got it. I needed it, but this could be a real problem. All right, they're with us the whole hour, folks. Our think tank up next.
All right, everybody. Court TV is the source. Thank you, Mr. Vinny Politan, and your guest. Well, as this gentleman says in this commentary, what are the odds of people meeting each other, taking selfies, and then a book is penned shortly after? Exactly. Do you believe the allegations that Miss Becky took to the judge, a Facebook post of the juror talking about the case to the public? Are those allegations true against that juror? Why did the jury wait this long to say something? Or was this just legal wranglings until it all got out in the public? I don't know. So when did the jury members go to someone to say this lady was meddling in the case and trying to coerce us into how we should think? What day did these people bring forward this affidavit? And what will the judge's response be pertaining to Miss Hill and this debacle in this Murdaugh trial, which is allegedly been over? And that's what's being alleged by this Mr. Gordon, is all this took place after the trial, I'm assuming. And the trial ended in March. So they were getting that information down to pen a book quickly because it is just the first week of September. So when did she reach out to these people to pen a book, or did they reach out to her? Number one. Why did she feel the need to pen this book? Is the book mainly about Becky and not Mr. Murdaugh? Because as you hear this woman speaking, the book was grandiose. Becky. And that's the point I made in my commentary yesterday. That this is possibly all about Becky. Becky wanting attention. Becky wanting to be known. Becky clout chasing off of a man murdering his family. Becky wanting 5 minutes of fame. and Becky wanted a quick payout. This is possibly her ultimate bow out of being a clerk. You see, some people just leave their job. Okay, I've had enough. My time's up. I've worked here long enough. I'm cutting out. Go find me something else to do. Retire. Maybe that wasn't Becky. Maybe Becky said, I'm going to find a way to navigate around this position to make myself seem important, show people I had an important job. And this was her way. But she has to know nobody would want her as the clerk now. Whether she told the truth about the allegations of the juror talking about the case, because you're going to have to bring a receipt. And we already know when it comes to social media, you can't even believe half the stuff that's being said on social media. People know how to dummy accounts. People know how to use different numbers to call people. I forgot what they call it, but phishing through phones and stuff. You got to find the original person that posted the alleged post. Then you got to ask them, where did they hear the information from? They may say, oh, Pookie told me, Mary told me, but not juror number such and such, such and such. You got to prove that juror told this one, something. And like I said, she could have repeated in confidence something about the trial, and then that person went out and ran and told stuff and put her name on it. But she still is liable because she wasn't supposed to be discussing the trial with anyone, not the clerk, not the other jury members, if the allegations are true. If. Let's hear from the jury's attorney. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie, 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during this live stream. Thank you for following this network and the content. Welcome new subscribers, old subscribers, chat members, and the viewing audience. Court TV was the source of that information. Lord have mercy. What a mess. What a mess. Murdaugh juror's lawyer reacts to jury tampering claims. You'll now hear from the jury member's attorney. Thank you all so much for following this content. Court TV is also the source of this information. I will be back on a little later to talk about some other breaking news coming out of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Lori Vallow now wants another trial. A woman from this area brutally murdered a woman, she and her boyfriend, a few years ago. I'm going to bring you those two updates in the same live stream. And I'm also going to bring you a very devastating story of a young baby, a toddler that was murdered by the mother's boyfriend. I'm going to bring you those updates a little later. Court TV is the source.
Indictment for murder, guilty. Indictment for murder, guilty.
Justice was done.
It gave a voice to Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, who were brutally mowed down and murdered. We can't bring them back, but we can bring them justice.
And he may be taken away.
If you're a fan of Court TV at all, then you know we have new developments in the Murdaugh murders. Attorneys for Alec Murdaugh are seeking a new trial alleging jury tampering by the clerk of court, Rebecca Hill. Now, Murdaugh's attorneys detailed those allegations in front of the South Carolina Court of Appeals and outlined them in a press conference Tuesday afternoon.
When we considered what factors and what we should and should not do and considered whether he should take the stand, we never considered the likelihood, as reported to us by the jurors, that the clerk of court would go in to the sanctity of the jury room before he testified and tell the jurors, don't be fooled by his testimony, watch out for his body language. And
so this is where the allegation of her tampering with the jury. She went into the jury room where they deliberate. This is a sacred room, privacy only for these people to talk, converse, come to a sound decision about the defendant. What the hell was she doing in there? Is this allegation true that she went in the jury room? This is why I said, where would she be telling these people anything about Mr. Murdaugh negatively? Now we hear the jury room from these attorneys that represent Mr. Murdaugh, 3 of them. Also allegations at the crime scene. She walked off with a jury member to say something. What was that conversation about? Did she build a relationship, friendship, rapport with that alleged person, which is a jury member? Separate incidences. So this is why I said, even if we didn't hear anything about the gossip of somebody saying something, a jury member, that's still a separate situation, allegation of her talking to jury members. So you have several allegations here. She canoodling with jury members, talking to the jury about Mr. Murdaugh negatively, number one. Then before that, when they were going to the crime scene, which would have been the beginning of the trial, she's talking to a jury member separately. Okay? So separately with one at the beginning, at the end, going into the jury room. These are the claims the defense attorneys are making. Then we have her going to the judge with allegations from Facebook of people talking about the juror discussing the case. All separate scenarios. What is the truth? Somebody's got to be telling the truth in this, or is this just a bunch of people wanting attention? The jury is lying. Nobody was on Facebook telling anything from the trial. Juror never said anything. Juror was dismissed without warrant, without a receipt. And Becky was doing her job. What is the truth?
Out for his body language, and that is what the sworn testimony that we have filed in court today says. And if that is true, which we have every reason to believe that it is, and no reason to believe that it's not, there's no choice but the courts to grant a new trial.
Murdaugh was sentenced in March to 2 life sentences for the murders of his wife Maggie and his youngest son Paul. The 55-year-old has always maintained his innocence. The defense's motion alleges the clerk told jurors not to be misled by the defense, not to be fooled by Murdaugh's testimony, and that she fabricated a story to remove a juror who she felt might vote not guilty.
You guys remember those stimulus checks?
Sorry about that. So now that's another allegation that she felt like this jury member would vote not guilty. Is that true? And who was the person that revealed that information about Becky Hill? Or did Becky Hill say that out of her mouth to someone? To the judge, whomever? How did that information get out? So see, this is what I'm saying. It's one allegation after the other. She felt like a jury member allegedly would not bring a guilty vote. Who was that jury member she's speaking of? How did that information get out? Who was bringing forth that allegation? Another jury member? So that means if she said this to a jury member, she had to have said it in confidence. Because who would say it with that certain person being in earshot to hear it? This is a hot butter mess. Lord have mercy.
We were not looking to impute any nefarious conduct, but clearly what the jurors reported to us, that they were off talking, the 480 and the clerk. I saw them together, but I wasn't watching. I believe, look, I've been doing this almost 50 years.
So here's one of the attorneys for Murdaugh saying he saw the 4lady and Miss Hill talking. When and where was this? At the compound where the crime took place? When and where? And how many people knew of all these conversations between Miss Hill and the jury, Miss Hill and another jury member, members? When, where, how, why, and why are we just now hearing this after Murdaugh has been found guilty? Is that the reason all this came out? Is because the jury wanted to get off that jury box, wanted to get him convicted, hurry up and gave a verdict, and then whispering started, and somebody decided to bring forward this information. So that's why I'm asking, when did somebody put this on paper of the improprieties of Miss Rebecca Hill as the clerk? And what is her actual job description? What's the bailiff's description and what is her description? Is it known for the court clerk to be in the courtroom, intervening, doing this or that? What is her damn job description? I will read a court clerk's description, but it does not mean necessarily that was hers. Just saying. People do different things in different jurisdictions, whether it's morally or ethically right or not.
Here.
Sorry about that.
The bedrock of any trial, and I've done hundreds of them, is that the clerk of court is the person that makes sure the jury gets the food. If they're put up for the night, someplace to stay, their travel accommodations are met. They're not someone that ever should talk to them about the case. I've never had it happen.
Murdoch's attorneys claim Hill's motivation surrounded a book deal and media appearances that would have been in jeopardy in the event of a mistrial. Hill denies the claims, calling them so untrue. And her co-author appeared on closing arguments with Vinnie Politan last night, saying there was no book deal and they self-published the book. Defense attorney Dick Harpootlian appeared on Good Morning America and encouraged other jurors to seek legal counsel.
The two jurors that gave us affidavits hired a lawyer, Joe McCullough, before they would talk to us and before they gave us the affidavits. The other jurors out there on a group text, and we are reasonably informed that last week when these allegations began to surface, one of the jurors said, quote, "Who's talking?" I'm concerned that these jurors don't understand the import of what's getting ready to happen. They need to get lawyers. They need to understand they may have some exposure, and they need to be careful before they start talking to the FBI or SLED or even us.
All right, here to discuss is criminal defense attorney Joe McCullough.
So you hear this attorney or this gentleman speaking that there was a group text sent out where somebody in the group is asking or more who's talking. Then he's saying that these jurors need to get their own attorneys because they don't have any idea what they are in store for. I would agree with that because this is dealing with a man's life who has been convicted of murdering his child and his wife. He claims he's innocent. But nonetheless, these improprieties, if they are true, he can get another trial. I can see this. And in the eye of a killer, that's all they need is another chance. He's probably thanking Becky Hill right now, Mr. Murdoch. Thank you for watching social media and seeing what you said you seen and bringing the information back. Even though you don't like me, you think I'm guilty of murdering my family. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So see, this is what happens when you think you're doing right. Perhaps she considered herself a right fighter, Miss Hill, but she went into belly of the beast, trading in Facebook post land, come back, carried the bone to the judge. The judge carried the bone to the jury box, told the jury she's got to get out. Now, jury members had to go get their own lawyers to speak, which I thought was interesting. And now we have the allegations allegedly coming out a week beforehand. So that's why I said, who was talking and why is this information just now coming out? Months after the verdict was rendered. Why not speak during the trial? Hey, this lady is out of line. Hey, this lady's out of pocket. Maybe they didn't want to rock the boat, like I said. Didn't want to stir up more trouble. Didn't want to delay the trial. Wanted to get the trial over with. Wanted to get back to their family, their friends, their job. Peace of mind. Scared. I don't know. Or anything that could mishap the trial, such as a mistrial. Because imagine if they had said something during the trial, his defense attorneys could ask for a mistrial because of these allegations against Miss Hill. And this is possibly why they didn't say nothing during the trial. But somebody woke up out their slumber and said, we got to say something. So as you hear this man speaking in his commentary, 2 came forward. But I believe it's 3. Now, if there are only 3 speaking, will the other 9 come forward to agree about the allegations against Miss Hill? Lord have mercy. What a mess.
This is criminal defense attorney Joe McCullough, who, as you heard, is representing 2 of the Murdaugh jurors who gave affidavits. Joe, great to see you. Thank you so much for taking out time to be on the show with me tonight. Really appreciate it, man. All right, let's start off first and foremost. Just standing afar from this situation. I know you represent 2 of the jurors, but standing afar, I just got to get your reaction to some of the claims being made by the Murdaugh defense.
Well, the claims don't please me as a trial lawyer or as a person who spent 6 weeks in the courtroom watching this trial and having a relationship with the clerk of court who did a good job in running that courtroom and courthouse. So I don't take any great pleasure in where we find ourselves. So these are tough allegations. The defense has a job to do. The prosecution.
All right, it looks like we've found some. Okay.
If the prosecution has to unwind its victory lap, that's going to be a bitter pill.
Yeah, no question about it. Now, you mentioned Becky Hill. I know it's a small community out there. I would imagine you know her or have certainly been in the courtroom where she was the clerk of the court. She was handling a case she might have been involved in. What can you tell me about her and your interactions with her in the past?
Well, I had limited interactions. I don't do a lot of business down in the Low Country, or at least in that county. I found her to be a very charming person and one who appeared to be doing her job. These allegations are troubling. They're going to have to be examined, and there may be innocent explanations, and there may not be. But she, I understand today, has hired her own set of lawyers, and that's appropriate and necessary. And my clients, for their part, are courageous ladies who came forward reluctantly, who agreed to speak to the defense. And I think all of this just now is in the hands of the court.
All right, so let's talk about your involvement in the case now. I can tell you.
This is very interesting. You hear him saying that they're ladies, so I'm assuming that these are 2 jury members who are females, decided to speak to the defense. Why is that? You already gave your verdict. You all had to be unanimous to find him guilty, because all it takes is 1 to hang the jury. I want you all to listen very carefully now to this information. It takes 1 to hang the jury. So all 12 voted guilty. You sat and deliberated and said, yay, he is guilty, Mr. Alex Murdaugh. What is going to be interesting now is what this attorney is saying for the 2 ladies who have come forward and given affidavits, signed affidavits to their testimonies of the improprieties of Ms. Hill. They have also spoken to the defense attorneys of Mr. Murdaugh. Now, some would say, why even say anything when you've already rendered a guilty verdict? Stay woke, everybody. Why do you care? You've already said the man's guilty, so why now throw Ms. Hill under the bus? Okay, why throw her under the bus? It is what it is. It's over with. We voted guilty. Why now wait all these months to come forward to say she did this, this, and this? I want you to think about that for just a second. They went to the defense attorneys. Why? So now let's ask the ultimate question of the hour. Are these women having second thoughts about their vote to convict Murdaugh? Lord have mercy. Is that where this is going? That they have reservations about their guilty vote. Number 1. 2, they felt coerced. 3, changed their minds. 4, confused about their votes. Are we going to hear later from these 2 women that they felt coerced and or confused about their verdict, want to change their verdict, didn't understand some procedures, and did they notice any other improprieties by jury members, the judge, Ms. Hill, or anybody else that was in court during trial? This is possibly worse than what I've even pondered on. This ain't good.
You, Joe, that it has raised a few eyebrows. Everyone knows that you're friendly with Dick Harpootlian and used to work together. Guys have been colleagues for any number of years. I know you were involved with them in the defense, not helping them, but you would go to dinner and we're getting some updates on the case. And now here you are representing two of the jurors that could be responsible for getting a new trial for their client. Tell me how you got involved in this case.
Well, I'm no friend of Alec Murdoch since I was busy suing him throughout the 6 weeks of this trial. Absolutely correct. Dick Harpootlian is a person I've known for decades. We were law partners. I've known Jim Griffin. We've been on opposite sides of cases and on the same side of cases. I've worked with some of the prosecution team and tried cases against them. So South Carolina is about that big. Everybody knows everybody. The fact that I went to dinner at the defense team's quarters during the trial, I believe I also drank coffee and had breakfast with the prosecutors. So that 6 weeks was a long 6 weeks where virtually everyone interacted on varying levels. How I came to be involved on behalf of these jurors is I was asked to be. Initially, I was asked right after the trial to help jurors not be bothered by media, by the press. So I stood in a protective role at that time, trying to get them some peace and privacy. And I still have that role now. These jurors are courageous. They deserve the respect of the public for giving their versions of events and having the courage to do that. They don't deserve to be rolled and trolled by some of the more obsessed public out there.
Joe, let me ask you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, there's some suggestion that if this was going on, some of the things, they seem so egregious. At some point, do you have any explanation for why the jurors might not have gone to the judge?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I think that a jury is intimidated by the authority of the judge. This is a judge who, at one point, determined that the jury's selection of a four-person was not his selection, and so he replaced the jury's selection. But I think that juries are, they've assumed a role, they become followers, they're not leaders, they're certainly not going to provoke authority in the courtroom, and I think that their silence in this matter is absolutely understandable to me.
And Joe, finally, let me ask you, so what's next now for your clients? Because clearly she's claiming, or Becky Hill is claiming, this stuff is
Let
not
me go
true.
back here.
Somebody's lying.
It was not his selection.
I don't understand.
Go ahead.
This is strange to me about the selection.
There's some suggestion that if this was going on, some of the things, they seem so egregious. At some point, do you have any explanation for why the jurors might not have gone to the judge and told the judge what was going on?
Well, yeah, I think that a jury is intimidated by the authority of the judge. This is a judge who, at one point, determined that the jury's selection of a four-person was not his selection, and so he replaced the jury's.
So help me understand here, because I do not want to speak on something I know nothing about. Why would the judge have a problem with the four-person? Is the four-person the person that was allegedly the original four-person? Let me say that. Was the original four-person the person that the judge let go because of the gossip on social media? I'll make sure I make this clear. Then who became the next four-person? And is this the four-person that was canoodling with Becky Hill? Because I'm confused. The way this guy is speaking, who is representing the two jurors, he's making it seem like the judge had a problem with the four-person. So I need clarification, because I just don't want to speak on something that I don't know anything about, because I already went out on a limb yesterday talking about this lady, because I feel like there's something is off with her and her role in the role she played during trial, and her writing the book just seems suspect to me. But this man who's an attorney for the jurors is saying that wasn't his selection, or is he trying to say he didn't care for the person, or this is the actual tattletale juror that was the foreperson? What is the truth? Is this person they're speaking of that was let go as the foreperson the actual jury person that allegedly went out in the public talking about the case and the judge dismissed her? That's what I'd like to know.
Selection, and so he replaced the jury's selection. But I think the juries are they've assumed a role. They become followers. They're not leaders. They're certainly not going to provoke authority in the courtroom. And I think that their silence in this matter is absolutely understandable to me.
And Joe, finally, let me ask you, so what's next now for your clients? Because clearly she's claiming, or Becky Hill is claiming, this stuff is not true. Somebody's lying here. What's next for your clients?
Well, I think there's an investigation that's next. And the two jurors I represent, the other jurors some of whom have been on television, flown to New York, talked freely to the press, now will find themselves in rooms with investigators, if not in a courtroom under oath, and they're going to have to answer questions about their best recollections. So it's not really a contest of numbers, it's a contest of information. And I mean, if the defense is able to establish this tampering that's been alleged by them, then the burden shifts. There's a presumption of a tainted process, and that presumption is a strong one.
All right, Joe McCullough, we'll be watching this closely. You're now, as I said, representing two of the jurors who have filed affidavits with the defense, suggesting that there were improprieties by the clerk of the court. Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Truly appreciate it.
Court TV is the source of this information, and also the other source. One moment, please. This attorney is representing two jury members. I thought I heard that there were three that have spoken or given affidavits. As you also hear him say, the people who have gone and spoken publicly about this case to New York and other avenues, now they will have to be questioned by, I guess, some investigative team members. This is a mess. And she's denying all allegations against her, Miss Becky Hill. So I'm going to ask Becky directly during this live stream before I check out of here. Becky, what part of the allegations are you denying? Are you denying that you went to the judge with the he said, she said about somebody talking out in the public? Because you're the reason the judge made the decision to get rid of that juror. And it was that juror the foreperson or just a regular jury member? Were you doing things in the courtroom that you should not have been doing? Were you talking to these members outside of court, in the court, in a private room, jury room, and you weren't supposed to? Did you have phone numbers, or do you have phone numbers of any of the jury members? Are you friends now with any of the jury members for a person? Were you designated to do things in the court that you shouldn't have been doing? That is not the norm in other courtrooms. I'd like to know. And will you tell the truth? Because now it's a battle of he said and she said, such as what he just said, this attorney. The battle of information. Exactly. It's still a he said, she said battle. Because now she's denying allegations against her. I'm sure the jury member who was let go is going to deny that they ever talked publicly. And then we have to wait to see who are these jury members that have signed these affidavits with these allegations against Ms. Hill. And as you heard this commentator say, why did they wait so long? The attorney says possibly out of fear. Fear of the judge. Fear of the hierarchy. And that is one of my reasons I had on my list as well. But who's to say it's not a combination of everything? Fearing the judge, fearing a mistrial. This is bad. This is really, really bad. Because this man murdered his family in cold blood. Now he may get the opportunity to go stand before another panel of people, jury members. Whether he still stays incarcerated or not, it's still the opportunity. And when you are a diabolical mind, that's enough for you. That is enough for you. This is a travesty of justice if the allegations are true. I just still in my gut believe this lady is a clout chaser. She was possibly not a happy person. She wasn't content with her job. She wasn't content with who she is as a person. There are things she may have liked about the job. Hell, she may even really liked her job, but there's still something missing in her life to where she felt she needed more. She needed more attention on herself. She needed to be validated. And now, with all that has happened with her tattletelling on the juror, we are where we are today with jury members getting lawyers, jury members wondering who's talking, the defense believing they need to get another trial because of these allegations against Miss Hill. She's denying the allegations. Her co-author is saying she's an upstanding citizen. He has no regrets for writing the book. But what did I always tell you? One thing begets another. This was a negative case, and now it has grown extra tentacles because of Alex Murdaugh. And this is what happens with true crime. One thing begets another, and it's usually very negative, very vile, very nefarious. Negative people draw negative people. Vile people draw vile people. And as you heard him say, he got involved because he wanted to protect the jury members, from the media and being accosted. And now what fear was lingering months ago is now wide open. There'll be no mystery now because two have filed claims of improprieties. So now everybody's going to have to speak at some point, whether to a detective or a court investigator or a judge, however it goes. Now we have to ask, will this judge still be involved? Because I don't think he should be involved in any proceedings pertaining to Alex Murdaugh or these jurors, because I don't think that would be a good look. Because in the end, he's the one that made the decision about the juror. So some could say the juror is what? Spiteful, mad at the world, upset that they weren't able to continue on with the trial. So is she one of this attorney's clients? How about that? The plot thickens. Is the dismissed juror one of the clients of this attorney? The ex-juror. And if not, where is the ex-juror? And will we hear from her, the ex-juror? Was she the actual foreman in the beginning? See, 1,000 questions. And this is why I said, had this lady never went and said anything about the Facebook post to the judge, we wouldn't be here today making commentary about these allegations against her, Miss Hill. She got this party crunk. She started this ball rolling. Now somebody's got to finish it at the expense possibly of South Carolina taxpayers. People wanting to move on from this trial, family members, friends, people in the community that knew the Murdaughs want an end to it. Well, there's no end now because he may get a new trial because of Becky Hill. And let's ask that question. Had Becky never went forward with writing the book, would these people have come out to speak against her? See, you have to ask all these questions now. Because as I said, one thing begets another. Is this about her writing the book? Is there some jealousy amongst the jury members and Miss Hill that she's trying to steal the limelight for herself and from the jury members? Because as you've heard many people say, it is unheard of a court clerk writing a book, penning a book. So could it be a combination of all of the above? She was canoodling with jury members. She did speak out of turn pertaining to Mr. Alex Murdaugh to the jury members. One of the jury members did go out in the street gossiping. That allegation is true. She carried the bone back to the judge. He dismissed that jury member. She was doing things in the court she shouldn't have been doing, delegating in places she wasn't supposed to be. And the jury, some of the jury members had a problem with her day one or after the fact, after the verdict of her penning the book. Which is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or all of the above? Because in the end, nobody's going to tell you their true nature of why they're doing something. The juror may never admit she was gossiping about the trial. Miss Hill is never going to admit she made up the lie to get rid of the juror. Personal vendetta, knew her, heard about her, something personal, I don't know. And the two jury members who have now hired an attorney, they may never tell you their true motivation behind coming forward with this information a day late, dollar short. Because it is definitely a day late. Is there a hidden agenda by all parties involved now? Stay woke. The guy penning the book with Miss Hill, Mr. Gordon, Miss Hill herself, the jury members, the judge. Are we going to hear of more improprieties against Miss Hill and anybody else affiliated with this trial? Anybody else said something out of the way to the jury members? Did they feel threatened, coerced? Do they wish they could change their vote? Because if we find that out, that is going to be devastating. Because I believe there was enough evidence to convict Mr. Murdaugh for the murders of his wife and child. And if we find out that two people changed their minds, wish they hadn't voted guilty, oh, baby. I want to thank you for your time. God bless all of you. Have a wonderful week. Before I go, I want to read off what a court clerk's position is. And let's see if we can get some type of idea. Of what it is she was supposed to do. Court clerks ensure the efficient operation of state courts by maintaining dockets and records, handling administrative matters, and serving as goodwill ambassadors to the public. The appellate courts are served by the appellate court clerk, who is based in Nashville. So that's what I thought, because you always see that when you go into the court building. It'll say court clerk. That's the person that's handling, yes, the daily activities of the court system itself. What does a county court clerk do? Let's see. Well, this is... Today, county clerks are generally responsible for maintaining records of all governing body transactions, including resolutions and ordinances. They are responsible for keeping records of deeds and marriage licenses and most other public records. The clerk maintains all records of pleadings, motions, papers, evidence, and court rulings of the court. The clerk keeps on file a record of all foreign judgments against citizens of the county and from other states and counties. This is the responsibility of the clerk of courts. Note there's a difference. The meaning of clerk, county clerk. An elected county official whose duties vary widely but are likely to include serving as secretary to the county board, issuing licenses, keeping records, and acting as county auditor or comptroller. Now you have the town clerk. This is the clerk who's expected to advise the council on and assist in the formation of overall policies to be followed in the aspect of the authority's activities, and in particular, to produce all the information required for making effective decisions and to implement constructively all decisions. It's like they're talking in circles on that one, town clerk. Office clerk, answering phones, taking messages, handling mail, and scheduling appointments. Other everyday duties include collecting information, faxing, scanning, making copies, and data entry. What makes a good office clerk? So see, there's different types of clerks. That's an office clerk. But once again, a court clerk is supposed to ensure the efficient operation of state courts by maintaining dockets and records, handling administrative matters. I don't know. This is a very interesting situation. Okay. The average court clerk's salary in South Carolina is $39,647 as of August 27, 2023. But the range typically falls between $35,643 to $46,466. So let me ask this question. Ms. Hill, how much money do you make as the South Carolina Court of Clerks? Court of Clerk. I'm just curious. The average pay for court clerk is $40,533 a year and $19 an hour in South Carolina, United States. $19 an hour. Highest courtroom clerk pay. Top earners, $58,609. That's an average of $28 an hour. 75th percentile, $49,800. The average, $41,007. And the 25th percentile is at $35,800. So the top earners can make $28 an hour all the way down to the 25th percentile at $17 an hour. And I would assume that 25th percentile would be in a very small jurisdiction. Clerks of court provide the necessary staff support and assistance to ensure a more productive operation of the judicial system. The clerk of court is also responsible for drawing jurors for civil, criminal court, and the grand jury for the county. Perhaps that's what she does, this clerks of court. Nonetheless, whatever her job description is or was, possibly she failed it if she was canoodling with jury members. And then you have to ask yourself, if there is proof of Rebecca Hill meddling with jury members, she's probably done other things that she had no business doing, as I stated before in my video yesterday. And she's possibly went through records, looked through records, repeated personal information of people on trial, going to trial, trial verdicts, evidence. She would have access to that. That's why I said I won't doubt she had access to a lot of information before Mr. Murdaugh and any other suspect went to trial, because you get a trial date in advance. She would know this information. So how do we know she wasn't the one out repeating things about the trial? Because if you are eager to tell a jury how to think, what to look out for, what not to mind pertaining to the suspect, the defendant, you will also be the same person that will go out in the public and say the same damn thing. Shh, don't tell anybody that Murdoch guy is guilty. I know this, this, and this. I saw this, this, and this. And then she prays nobody goes back and repeat what she has said. Maybe she felt safe saying it to the jury because she thought they would vote guilty. But in the end, that is wrong. And she had no business going in the jury room talking to them about a damn thing. The only thing she's supposed to be doing is navigating them to and fro, if that was her actual description. My understanding is supposed to be the bailiffs. So who was supposed to be in charge of the damn jury? That's the question. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Terry. You all have a wonderful day. I'll be back with more stimulating commentary on breaking news. Be careful out there. Stay hydrated. Stay out of the heat if you can. You have been listening to The Vault. Exhale.